ball lovers and ball knowers. Welcome to another episode of the Bucks Beat here on WTMJ. I am your host, Monis Khan, the editor-in-chief of Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. And every week here on the Bucks Beat, you'll be getting essential insights and analysis from the people who know the team best, the people on the beat. So today, we have an amazing episode for you. Beat writer for BrewHoop.com, Jackson Gross, followed by an exclusive excerpt from our Courtside podcast. This week, Gail Klappa interviewing senior writer at The Athletic, Eric Nehm, beloved beat writer for the Milwaukee Bucks. Those two interviews will be coming up later on in the podcast. And you can always catch our show on the radio, 8 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays on WTMJ. Or if you prefer to watch, catch us on WTMJ's YouTube channel. And today, let's begin here at a crossroads. That's where the Bucks find themselves after a 5-game losing streak drops them to 8-10 on the season. Still a week or so away from Giannis's return, a return that cannot come soon enough, but a few games left between now and then. At Heat, at Knicks, you can catch those both here on WTMJ. And, we're left to wonder, following a blowout loss to a Portland Trailblazers team without any of their best backcourt players, no Drew Holiday, no Shaedon Sharpe, no Scoot Henderson. And still, the Bucks could not keep it close. And it was one thing to lose big to a Pistons team that is totally on fire. But I think last night's loss in particular just kind of shows how dire the situation is for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And when Giannis first went down, Doc Rivers told, us media members who were there in the pregame that, there's always a silver lining to losing a star player because you might learn something, a new player might emerge that you may be able to take that into the postseason. And it can help you win games later on in the season. But now, without Giannis, the team looks like the Brooklyn Nets, like the Washington Wizards, like the Indiana Pacers. It has a negative 13 net rating without Giannis on the floor this season. And some of its most glaring deficiencies on the offensive boards, at the free throw line. I mean, they were on the bottom of the league even with Giannis in the lineup. So Doc said, going into the game against the Portland Trailblazers, we're not looking for silver linings. We're looking for a win. And they left last night at home against a Western Conference foe on the second game of a back-to-back, the Trailblazers, playing in Oklahoma City the night before. They came out with another loss. And Ryan Rollins, the team's star, who was on a hot streak going into the game, 3 games in a row, scoring above 20 points, some really incredible performances by Ryan in some of those losses. He came back down to earth, 10 points last night. And maybe an encouraging thing coming out of that game is he's starting to figure out what he needs to do in order to beat the ball pressure that he's facing, because other teams know very few ball handlers on the Bucks. So they're trapping him. They're doing everything they can do to contain him. But after the game, he saw a sliver of something that he might be able to look into in order to figure out how he can be better in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they guarded him the same way, so I honestly should watch a little bit more of how he was handling that and how he was getting off it and still, getting to sets. We got to figure it out, though.
And that's the thing about Ryan. You talk to anyone, and he's glued to the film. He's speaking with Rajon Rondo, assistant coach on the Bucks. He's speaking with his teammates like Kevin Porter Jr., like Giannis. He wants to get better. And at the end of the day, one of the advantages of having a young team is that they have the opportunity to get better. And so a guy who's within the top 5 of players ranked in the early stages of the MIP, Most Improved Player race, you think maybe he can learn something from this and take something away. And we have a lot more analysis coming today. We're going to find out what's going wrong with the Bucks, what's going right, how are they going to rebound from this 5-game losing streak, and which turn are they going to take on these crossroads that they find themselves. We'll be back here on the Bucks Beat with the story of the week for the Milwaukee Bucks. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat. We're here with Dylan Hunter Carter, the producer of our Here District podcast on Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. Dylan, always a pleasure having you on.
So glad to be here, Monis. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Dylan. And obviously the story of the week this week, which is what I love to chat with you about, is this 5-game losing streak. No way around it, Dylan. It's always fun to hang out with you, but difficult to watch Bucks basketball these last few games. Dylan, what are you seeing out there? And is this what the rest of the season is going to feel like for Bucks fans?
Rest assured, this is not what the rest of the season is going to look like. There is more to come. Obviously, they're dealing with injuries right now. 3 core rotation players, including one of the greatest players of all time, is not in the lineup. So Giannis, Kevin Porter Jr., Taurean Prince, all out with these injuries. Now, the bright side is here, right? This team, their ball movement hasn't been great. I haven't seen too many off-ball actions because there aren't a lot of primary ball handlers, so you need to find creative ways to get some of these guys involved, especially some of the three-point specialists who need those catch-and-shoot opportunities. So Doc Rivers has been talking about spicing things up a little bit, trying some new things, getting creative on offense, but a lot of that is going to be solved with the return of Kevin Porter Jr., which is heavily on my radar for one of the next stories. They said it was a 4-week window once he injured his meniscus. That was putting him on track for a return December 3rd against the Detroit Pistons. Doc Rivers has been saying that he seems very close. And Kevin Porter Jr. himself came out recently and talked about how he's feeling great, how he's energized to be back in the building, and how he feels like him and Ryan Rollins can be such great complements to each other. And this is exactly what the Bucks need on both sides of the floor, a release valve. There's so much on Rollins right at this moment. When those guys are able to share the floor together, it's going to change everything for both of them.
Yeah, let's hear what Kevin Porter Jr. had to say in that press conference the other day.
We need him to be like this, especially when I'm back, because I'm in, he's in. Like, we got 2 people that can really control the game and be cool when Yanni's out. And we already know when we're fully healthy, so we dangerous when we're fully healthy.
Yeah, Dylan, you know, one of the weird things that I'm seeing about the discourse around Kevin Porter Jr. and the emergence of Ryan Rollins, which really happened as a result of KPJ going down after 10 minutes in the first game of the season, is that Bucks fans feel like they have to choose Team KPJ or Team Ryan Rollins. And the whole time I'm thinking, guys, we get to have both of them on the team, and not just in staggered lineups where one of them is running the show or supporting Giannis as another ball handler. They get to take the court together, and that's what I loved about KPJ's thoughts that he shared in that presser, was that that's what he's looking forward to too.
These guys are in constant communication. They have a really strong relationship, it seems like. They're trying to learn from each other because they have different experiences. They have different perspectives. And frankly, it's easier to see something when you're on the sidelines like KPJ has been with his injury. He's able to analyze what looks they're throwing at Rollins, what some of his strengths have been, what some of his weaknesses have been. And they've been able to communicate about that in a way that's going to help them a lot down the stretch of the season. We've been robbed so far, frankly, because I was super excited to see this backcourt combo coming into the season. And now as we head into December, finally it's going to come to fruition and help these Bucks scrap out of the dog days.
And unclear what the starting lineup is going to look like. Obviously, KPJ probably going to have maybe a minutes restriction, maybe work his way back into the full-on role that he'll be taking on. But there is a world in which, because a lot of people were wondering, like, is Ryan Rollins moving back to the bench like he was meant to be in that role starting the season? It almost feels inevitable that we're going to see both of them in the starting lineup. One thing I want to hear from you, Dylan, is you mentioned release valve. Explain to me the effect KPJ is going to have on the backcourt alongside Ryan Rollins.
So when Ryan has struggled this season, it's largely been because of a lot of ball pressure. Defenses flurrying him, chasing him around screens, full court pressing. Now he's going to have another capable ball handler who can create his own shot, who can break down defenders, who's going to draw some of that attention so that he's not the focal point of the offense anymore, especially in this stretch without Giannis. But then once we get down to Giannis is back and Kevin Porter Jr. is back, well, then there's a chance that now we're looking at him as the third guy that people are defending. And if he's scoring 30 points in these games, if he's able to create his own shot like this, that release valve effect means that the pressure is not on him the same way that it has been through this stretch of the season. And he gets to operate a little bit more freely, take shots as they come, and hopefully get a few open ones because he hasn't been getting very many of those since he started popping off.
Yeah, and I think that these are all very versatile guards, Ryan Rollins and KPJ. They've shown that they can be efficient from deep. It is a relatively small sample size for KPJ looking at the end of the last season, but has shown he could be a 40% three-point shooter. And Ryan Rollins has shown that might be who he is. So alongside Giannis, playing alongside each other, a lot of open shots on the perimeter, and in staggered minutes when Giannis is off the bench, guys who can create and really keep the pedal to the metal for the offense that was leading the NBA in effective field goal percentage going into last night's game. It really shows they can put the ball in the basket. It's all the other things that are kind of holding this team back. Dylan, we're talking a lot about guys who aren't on the court and how they're going to come rescue this team. One guy who's making an impression without Giannis in the lineup in a bigger role has been Kyle Kuzma. Looking beyond the box scores, he's not scoring a ton of points, averaging, in the teens this season. But what are you seeing that is encouraging you about what he could do for this team?
I don't think it's all about the scoring with Kyle Kuzma. The reason you go out and trade for Kyle Kuzma is because he's a versatile all-around player, and he has the shell of someone who can defend, who can pass, who can put pressure on defenses both on and off the ball. He's got size, he's got athleticism, and he's been showing that he can put it all together over this stretch in Milwaukee. He's got double-figure scoring in 11 of his last 13 games, and more importantly than that, in 9 out of those 13, he shot 50% or better from the field. Efficiency was a real problem with him last year. He had some bad habits he had to work out of after some years with a pretty ugly Washington Wizards team. And with that said, of the 8 players who played 250 or more minutes this year, he ranks number 3 in on-off differential. What does that mean in real words, right? This stat mumbo-jumbo, let's get that out of here. It means that Kyle Kuzma has been the third most impactful player when he's on the court versus how the team performs when he's off the court. So he's making a big splash.
Yeah, in a really ugly game last night, that was just a total blowout well into the fourth quarter. Kyle Kuzma +5. So clearly in extended minutes, showing that he's making a difference. And really maybe one of the very few silver linings coming out of that game against the Portland Trailblazers last night. Dylan, this week on Here District, every week it feels like you're bringing in the biggest names in basketball. That's the name of the game when it comes to the Here District podcast that you can stream on the Bucks official YouTube channel. Dylan, this week, Howard Beck, one of the OGs in the game of sports journalism, real, true legend. Loved the conversation with him. And one thing that I was surprised about was his enthusiasm about Kuz at this point in the season. This is what Howard Beck had to say on the Here District podcast this week.
Kuzma, once upon a time, was a very good defender, I thought, in LA when he won a championship out there. And I feel like you guys tell me, because you've seen more of the Bucks this season than I have. I've watched a fair amount, but Kuzma looks like he is playing a lot harder now than even when he arrived in Milwaukee in the middle of last season. Like, I feel like we're starting to see a little bit more of the version when he was younger, when he was, I think, playing a more serious game.
Dylan, high praise, man. High praise. And Beck is not one to BS anything. This guy keeps it real at all times. A really open, really straightforward conversation with Beck on this week's podcast. I think all of us who are watching or listening to this program after we're wrapped up here, go over to the Bucks YouTube channel, watch the whole episode with Howard Beck. But Dylan, what was your takeaway from Beck's kudos to Kuz on the episode?
So this is partly to do with Beck, but also to do with a lot of the guests that we've had on Here District over the course of the past year. I think Kuzma has a lot of people who are quietly rooting for him to get back to the player that he was in Los Angeles. That's a winning player, someone who can complement stars, someone who can do the dirty work, show what he's capable of on both sides of the floor. And specifically with what Howard said, he understands the root of what Kyle Kuzma's qualities are that contribute to winning. right? He needs those winning qualities. He needs those moments where he's focused on the game, he's picking the right shots to take, and Howard gave us a great example of why that's working so far.
Yeah, I mean, a championship player. I mean, guy, he won a championship, won a ring in the bubble. He was like basically the third option on that team, like a true star in his role, as he put it. He spoke to us on the Behind the Bucks podcast about that's how he's approaching this season, to be a star in the role and what that really means. I think he goes in depth in a very thoughtful way. I suggest everyone listen to the new season of Behind the Bucks podcast, Locked In. Dylan, another star in your role, a championship role player for the Here District podcast. Always a pleasure having you on the Bucks Beat. And when we come back, we have BrewHoop beat writer covering the Milwaukee Bucks this season, Jackson Gross. A really exciting conversation we're about to have with him. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Bucks Beat on 620 WTMJ. Welcome back to the Bucks Beat, and I am joined now by my buddy on the beat, Jackson Gross, beat writer for BrewHoop.com. Jackson, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely, Monis. Always good to see you as always. I'm sad I missed you yesterday for that Bucks and Trailblazers game, but considering how I saw it win, maybe it was for the best. So we didn't have to be in sorrow together. So, but it's always been good to be with you and talk with you.
Jackson, speaking of that game, you said before the game, you had this tweet. I thought it was really fascinating. You said through 17 games, this was before the loss against the Trailblazers, a blowout loss against a B team, against a team with down 7 players, Jackson. I mean, incredible. Something that was not anticipated going into the game. Even before that, Jackson, you said on Twitter, through 17 games, last year's team, this year's team, 8-9. But you said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but the vibes could not be more different. Jackson, what did you mean by that? I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think what I was trying to say is that, remember, because last year, what was it? They started 2-7 or some, like, it was a really, really bad start. So them getting to 8-9 after starting 2-7 and the second year of Damian Lillard and Giannis together, and I don't think Chris Middleton had played yet at that point, so that was a little bit later on, but the vibes were, at least in that sense, okay, the Bucks are improving, they're stacking some wins together, we're feeling good. Now this year, they started 4-1. They've now gone 4-9 since that start to fall to 8-10. So, and there's also concerns. There's a lot of injury concerns. Obviously, Giannis, Kevin Porter Jr., Taurean Prince. There's questions about what potentially Doc Rivers is doing in terms of offense and defense at times. So there's maybe less optimism comparatively just on how things have gone.
Yeah, and I think there are some glaring deficiencies on this team, especially on defense, especially when it comes to rebounding. But I want to talk to you about some of this team's strengths, because it's almost like when the team has the highest effective field goal percentage in the NBA, you would think that at least one thing is working: the offense. In the half court, one of the best teams in the NBA in the half court. But Jackson, crazy, they're 20th in the league right now in offensive rating. So what are you seeing from the offense? Is it a strength of this team, or could it be by the time that Giannis gets back?
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I know he hasn't been out terribly long. I think this was the 5th game the Bucks have played without Giannis this year. 1-4 in those games, by the way. That I think a lot, maybe that half court portion of it might be a little inflated, just because when he was there, they were pretty good. And that's not to discredit the rest of the guys, because yeah, you add Giannis to any team, they're going to be better in a bazillion categories just of how good of a player he is. So, but the offensive rating, I think it started to take a tumble, because I think when Giannis was playing, they were at least a top half in terms of offensive rating. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I also think that I've been thinking about this a lot, is it feels like in certain situations, they're maybe not getting Myles Turner as involved as he should be. Because I thought about this, that back on Media Day, Doc Rivers was talking about how we could use him on the elbow, use him as like a secondary distributor at points. And I really haven't seen that. A lot of the plays you see in the half court are dribble handoff, pick and roll with a guard and a big, dribble handoff, maybe some off ball actions here and there. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, at least while Giannis is out, at least for another week or so, it maybe depends, is that they need to more heavily involve the guy they're paying $30 million a year to.
Yeah, and when you factor in how much it costs to cut and stretch Damian
Wave and stretch,
Lillard,
yeah.
The wave and stretch. I mean, you kind of don't have to factor that into the whole Myles Turner thing, but it had so much to do with going to get Myles Turner that early on, 18 games into the season, definitely some concerns. We're going to speak in a little bit more depth about Myles Turner when we come back here with Jackson Gross, beat writer for BrewHoop.com, after the break. And we are back with Jackson Gross, beat writer for BrewHoop.com, here on the Bucks Beat. Jackson, you brought up Myles Turner. Now, even without Giannis on the court, we're not seeing a bigger impact that he's making, like just like you said, being integrated into the offense. His three-point efficiency is up, but his field goal percentage way down from his career averages in Indiana. His points per game, he's not even scoring, even without Giannis. And it's kind of like, when is he going to get going in this offense, let alone his ability to make an impact on the team defensively? Jackson, we're 18 games in. It's a pretty decent sample size. How would you grade the Myles Turner addition so far for the Bucks?
Man, that's a good question. I think at this
because I love those grades you give every night on BrewHoop.com. So I'm going to ask you to cumulatively, average them out for Myles Turner.
Yeah, and actually, we're coming up. When we hit the 20 games mark, we're actually Kyle, one of the other guys at BrewHoop, he's putting together an article to kind of show 20 games in where we've graded the Bucks based on their performances. So that'll be coming out soon. At least in terms of what I can remember and what I've kind of cobbled together, it's teetering for me on C+, B- area, because there were some games where he looked really good. The NBA Cup game against the Bulls, he looked really good. There were some really good defensive plays mixed in here and there. But like you said, even with Giannis out, he really hasn't had a chance to put his stamp on the offense. I think he's averaging somewhere in the realm of 11 or 12 points per game. And especially with Giannis out, you want to see that uptick. Now, part of that has to do with the emergence of Ryan Rollins, which has been tremendous for this Bucks team. I think, especially without Giannis, and even when Giannis is back, you would want to see him closer to somewhere in that range of 14 to 16 points per game. And I'm not sure what exactly, the 3-point you said was up a little bit, but I think at the same time, it's kind of taken a while to him get to that point because he was shooting so poorly in the early stages of the season. So we'll see if he can get everything together. I think Doc said after that game against Detroit that he's kind of been passing up some looks here and there, and he knows what they're kind of expecting out of him.
And another player who has not necessarily, built on his momentum that he had ending the season last year, especially in the playoffs, was Gary Trent Jr., who started off, with the starters this season and is now, you could say, finding his footing coming off the bench. What do you think, Jackson? Do you think that, how do you see him trending right now, Gary Trent Jr., for the team? Do you like him in the role that he's currently occupying off the bench?
Yeah, it's a little bit of deja vu from last year, because he was a starter last year next to Dame and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, and then was moved to the bench. So it's kind of a little bit of a deja vu for him. I'm mixed because I feel like he hasn't had that, like, and I'm not expecting this on a consistent basis. He hasn't had that game where he goes like 4 of 8 or 5 of 10 or 6 of 11 from 3, like really like getting going. It feels like I think in the last game I was at against Detroit, he went 2 of 4 from 3. Like the attempts aren't there, the percentages aren't there. So I think maybe he'll get back settled into the being on the bench. But right now, I'm very mixed on what Gary Trent has been doing so far.
Yeah, he definitely, it's hard to judge because without Giannis, a lot more attention, a lot less open threes that he kind of can feast on. But at the same time, still trying to find his rhythm. And I think, the question that I have is he best suited to play alongside Kevin Porter Jr. in the backcourt? Is that sort of the rotation that unlocks the best of Gary Trent Jr.? Because was his running mate when he really went crazy to end the regular season and in the playoffs. So I'm just kind of curious, something to watch out for. And I also want to ask you, Jackson, about some of these end of rotation guys that we're finally starting to see. So we're seeing an increase in minutes for Gary Harris, Andre Jackson Jr., Jericho Sims. Any of those players, any of those minutes that you like, who do you want to see more of? Who do you think can kind of be a part of this team's rotation even when it gets back closer to full health?
Yeah, I really liked what I saw from Andre Jackson Jr. on Saturday against the Pistons, especially kind of filling in for Kuzma to guard Cade Cunningham when he was sick. I liked a lot of it for the most part. I think, honestly, of that bunch that you mentioned, it's kind of a toss-up for me between Jericho Sims and Gary Harris, because I think Gary Harris can kind of fill in a little bit of what Taurean Prince did in terms of like being a more quick trigger 3-point shooter. Maybe not the same size, but kind of fills that similar role. But I really like a lot of what Jericho Sims does. He rebounds the ball pretty well. He's super athletic. Like, I mean, outside of Giannis, the Bucks don't have a lot of those like uber athletes. So getting more of them out there and continuing to push the pace maybe a little bit, or just to help in rebounding, because that's obviously been a struggle too. So I would have to say when Giannis comes back, I think Gary Harris is going to stay because Taurean Prince, we don't know how long he's going to be out. He'll probably stay, but I would like to see a role carved out for Jericho Sims in spots.
That was Jackson Gross, beat writer for BrewHoop.com. You can read his work after every game on BrewHoop.com. And when we come back, another beat writer, Eric Nehm, joins the Courtside podcast with Gail Klappa. You won't want to miss it, and that'll be right after the break.
You're listening to a Bucks Plus audio production on the Bucks Plus Network.
The biggest voices in the locker room, in the front office, and in the NBA.
Our guest is the head of the herd, the head coach of the Bucks, Doc Rivers.
There's a way we can do this, but a lot of people have to be on board. And he got it done, which is amazing.
This is Courtside with Gail Klappa.
President of the Bucks, Peter Fagan.
I just think there's no big secret about Giannis being the focal point of kind of everything that happened.
Your all-access pass to Milwaukee's team.
Our guest, Bucks General Manager John Horst.
I've always said it's our job to give Giannis and this organization the best chance to win an NBA championship each and every season that we're together.
Now, here's your host, Gail Klappa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail Klappa, and this is Courtside. Well, it's a good thing they don't crown the NBA champion before Thanksgiving, because the Bucks are struggling to stay afloat. The problem's easy to spot. Giannis on the sidelines for the near term, and Kevin Porter Jr., the starting point guard, still making his way back from knee surgery. So the Bucks' defense has been porous, the offense has been spotty, and the team has slipped to 2 games below 500. Tonight we'll unpack it all with a guy who knows the Bucks inside and out. His job? Follow the team, every game, every move for the Athletic. Our guest is one of the most respected beat writers in the country, Eric Nehm. Eric, thanks for spending some time with us. Always fun to visit with you here on Courtside.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, Eric, we'll dig right in. And since Giannis, as you well know, is the focal point of almost everything the Bucks do on the court, shouldn't really come as a surprise that the team is struggling as he recovers from a groin strain. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is, I think a team that surprised some folks early in this year. I think you look at the hot start that they had, getting all the way out to, 6-3 and then 8-5. And I think you were looking at a team that surprised people because in the off season, so many had kind of thought that, well, it's just Giannis and a bunch of guys that we don't really know or a bunch of guys that we don't really trust. And all of a sudden, those guys were off to a really hot start and playing really good basketball. And now with Giannis out, that has all kind of gone to the wayside. And I think one of the things that John Horst had done smartly this offseason was build a team specifically around Giannis. And I think one of the lines that's really stuck out to me from training camp, from the off season, John Horst has used it multiple times. The idea is not only that, this roster will make Giannis better, and what that means is, spacing, three-point shooting, guys that can create off of pick and rolls with Giannis, all these things that are built around him. It's also the other side, that these guys will be maximized by Giannis. And I think what you're seeing right now is without Giannis, this roster is struggling to be maximized, right? Teams can press Ryan Rollins 94 feet. The other night against the Trailblazers, Toumani Camara is picking him up 94 feet. Toumani Camara is 6'8". He's got a long wingspan. He's tortured. I mean, the last 2 years, Damian Lillard never got a fun return to Portland because Toumani Camara was taking the ball in his hands, was really just torturing him. And we saw that same thing happen to Ryan Rollins, a guy that's 23 years old trying to figure things out. And without that, then, Myles Turner doesn't get the same looks that he would get if he was playing with Giannis. Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, just kind of down the line, all those guys do a great job turning great passes from Giannis into assists. They do a great job working off of him. But without him, those same looks aren't there because the Bucks don't have that guy that can bend a defense like Giannis. And that's not necessarily saying that's like a weakness because there is one Giannis in the world. He is a singular offensive force. But the Bucks have really struggled in these last 3 games to try to recapture even just a portion of what Giannis can do.
And Eric, you're absolutely right. Doc Rivers, though, the Bucks head coach, obviously, had an interesting comment the other day with us. He said through this rough patch, he thinks there will be a silver lining, that the team will learn something that really will help with wins later in the season. What do you see as a potential silver lining, Eric?
I think there's a couple there. I think when you look at what they're doing offensively, Ryan Rollins has gone through a lot in the last week. Just situations where he would not have ever had the opportunity if Giannis was out on the floor, right? You look at that 76ers game, obviously a game that they were in position to win, a game that they wanted to win badly. Ryan Rollins gets to take the final shot in regulation. That is not a shot he would get if Giannis was on the floor, if Giannis was playing. And Ryan, to his credit, was like, I got to do better than that. Doc had kind of said, we need to do better for Ryan. But these are just like, that rep is so specific and so difficult and such a high-level learning experience that I just don't think Ryan would have gotten without this, short absence for Giannis. So I think that is a huge thing that Ryan's just going to go through a lot right now that, the full attention of a defense is, at the start of the season, something no one would have ever guessed Ryan Rollins was going to get. So right. I think these are huge learning experiences for Ryan. So that's one thing offensively. Defensively, I think we've seen the Bucks lean into their zone defense without Giannis. And, I was putting together the stats for a story I was going to write, but I believe at this point they have used zone defense the second most of any team in the entire league. They're going to see another one of those teams in Miami when they go down there. Miami leads the league in zone defense, but the Bucks have done it. And, when you talk to Doc will tell you, like, we have, if not the best, one of the best zone defenses in the league. And without Giannis going down, I don't know if they would have gotten, the full reps that they needed to get comfortable in that. And I think that's something that defensively going forward, that won't be their main defense in the same way that Ryan Rollins won't be their main offense. But getting those reps, having those things in your back pocket could get you to a spot where those things can come through in more important games, in the playoffs when you get there. Like you can find some of those things here in this, week and a half, 2-week stretch that Giannis is out, that you would have never even thought to go looking for without this injury.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And we'll have more with Bucks beat writer Eric Nehm in a moment. This is Courtside on the Bucks Plus Audio Network. Gail Klompa back again with Bucks beat writer Eric Nehm. Eric, Gary Harris is a name not too familiar to Bucks fans. He was an under-the-radar signing by the Bucks during the summer. He's playing some meaningful minutes now as the Bucks juggle their lineups without Giannis. Tell our listeners, if you will, about the skill set that Gary Harris brings to the Bucks roster.
I think one thing that's been interesting about Gary is obviously this is a guy that when he was in Orlando, he was in Denver previously, this was a guy that started a whole bunch of games. I think in his NBA career, he's almost started 450 games. He's played over 600 NBA games. Like he's really gone through a lot. He's been a heavy usage guy. I think injuries are something that he has struggled with throughout his career, especially in the last 5 or so years. But when he's out there, he is someone that is unafraid to shoot the ball. He's someone that can really knock down threes. You look through his, I think as in his career, he's a 37% three-point shooter, but there are seasons where, it's 42%, it's 43% from the three-point line. And thus far this season with the Bucks, I think it's up over 45% for him. And I think one of the things that, Doc was really excited about Amir Coffey, who started the season in the rotation. That's a guy that Doc had gotten a chance to work with in Los Angeles with the Clippers, and a guy that he knew pretty well. And I don't think he knew Gary quite as well heading into this season. And I think the one thing that, really stood out to me talking to Doc about Gary was I think early in this year when Amir was out there playing with Giannis or with Ryan and getting the ball swung to him in the corner. And if you've watched enough Bucks basketball over the last couple of years, if you get the ball in the corner, it needs to be a three. You got to shoot it. Like it has to go up because that's kind of how the offense is built. You're going to be open in those spots. That three needs to go up. We've seen Myles Turner obviously shoot a lot more corner threes this year because that's just kind of how this offense works. And I thought there was a lot of times where Amir passed that shot up. And one thing that Doc had said when Gary started to get into the rotation was, we don't have to worry about Gary shooting it. He's going to shoot it. And I think you can see that confidence in Gary Harris, that this is not new to him. This is something that he's done before. This is something that he can do competently. And I think once Giannis gets back, playing alongside Giannis, he will be someone that can really have some nice nights from the three-point line. Obviously, they have AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. higher up on the list, but a little bit further down the list, we've seen Taurean Prince be able to be one of those people. I think Gary Harris can be one of those people as well.
Oh, interesting. And as you know, Eric, Gary Harris is a big body, and he has shown some real spark for the Bucks on defense.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing with this Bucks team is they are a little bit small on the wing. Yes. They don't have, you think about Portland the other night, it's 6'6", 6'8", 6'8" across the wing, and the Bucks are going to be a little bit smaller on the wing. You look at AJ Green, 6'4", Gary Trent, 6'4", Gary Harris, I think, is about 6'5", but he's got those long arms. One thing that Ryan has always had going for him is that long wingspan as well. I think they're going to continue to look for that size on the wing because that's just kind of how great NBA defenses are built. And the Bucks don't have a ton of that. So they are going to be constantly looking for that. So I'm genuinely curious to see, what Gary can do in that regard. He hasn't always been known for his defense, but as you mentioned, Gail, he does have a little bit bigger frame, and that might be able to help out the Bucks a little bit as they look for more size on the wing and a little bit sturdier defense there on the perimeter.
Well, Eric, as always, we appreciate visiting with you. Such great insight for us. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. You've been listening to Courtside on the Bucks Plus Audio Network. Subscribe today on Bucks.com, the Bucks app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until the next time, so long, everybody.
Always fascinating insight from Eric Nehm, senior writer at The Athletic. And be sure to catch the rest of that interview on the Courtside Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I'd like to thank Jackson Gross and Dylan Carter for joining me here today. And if you love this episode of the Bucks Beat, you'll want to follow at Bucks Plus Audio on social media so you don't miss a thing coming out of Bucks Plus, the official podcast network of the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll be back next week, 8 to 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Until then, have a great one.